He sent fake messages to ruin my marriage. What he did next left us shattered, betrayed, and furious. I still remember the exact sound my phone made that morning with that tiny, ordinary ding of a new message. It was 7:42 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was bleary-eyed, clutching my coffee, scrolling without really reading. And then I froze. The screen showed a screenshot. It was a conversation between my wife, Emily, and someone named Ryan. The words burned into my retinas. Emily, last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you. Ryan, soon we won't have to sneak around. I dropped my mug. It shattered into ceramic shards across the tile, but I didn't even feel the coffee sear my bare feet. My chest was tight, my throat dry. My hand shook so badly I could hardly hold the phone. The message wasn't from Emily. It was from her father, Justin, along with a screenshot he had written. "I'm sorry you had to see this, son. You deserve to know what kind of woman my daughter really is." I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, a storm of disbelief and nausea. Emily was still asleep in our bedroom upstairs, completely oblivious. Just 10 hours earlier, she'd kissed me goodnight, whispered she loved me. I read the message again, and again. Each time, it sliced deeper. My heart was hammering so violently I thought I might collapse. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the counter for balance. 1,000 images crashed through my head. Emily smiling at me on our wedding day, Emily cradling our newborn daughter, Emily laughing at some dumb joke I'd made. All of it now felt poison. I staggered upstairs. Every step was heavy, like dragging chains. When I pushed open our bedroom door, she stood, stretching beneath the sheets. "Morning," she murmured, her voice soft, innocent. I just stood there, my phone clutched in my fist, the screenshot burning holes into my vision. "Who's Ryan?" I asked, my voice cracking raw. Her eyes shot open. Confusion. Then fear. Then tears welling instantly. "What?" she stammered. "What are you talking about?" I held up the phone. "This? Don't lie to me. Who the hell is Ryan?" She sat up, shaking her head violently, panic flooding her face. No. This isn't real. This isn't. Oh my God. Where did you get this?" I was trembling so badly I thought the phone might slip from my hand. "Your father sent it to me. Your father. He said you've been sneaking around." Emily's face strained of all colour. She looked like she'd been punched. "What?" she whispered. My dad?" "Yes." My voice broke. "Your dad. He sent this to me. He said I needed to know the truth about you." For a moment, she just stared at me like her entire world had tilted off its axis. Then she scrambled out of bed, reaching for the phone. "Please let me see it." I yanked it back. Just don't. Tell me right now, Emily. Have you been cheating on me?" She sulked, shaking her head furiously. No, I swear to God, I would never. I don't even know Ryan, please. You have to believe me." But the screenshot was right there. Crystal clear. Her name. Her words. And Justin's smug little message beneath it, like he was a messenger of justice. I couldn't take it. I stormed out, slamming the door behind me so hard the walls rattled. My daughter cried out from her room down the hall. Emily chased after me, barefoot, still crying. "Please, just listen, it's not real, please." But I couldn't. My chest felt like it was caving in. The betrayal was too raw, too searing. I needed to escape before I exploded. I ended up sitting in my car in the driveway, shaking, drenched in cold sweat, staring at that damn screenshot. Over and over. And then, another message from Justin buzzed in. "I warned you she was no good. I told you she would break your heart. Now you finally see the truth. Don't make the mistake of forgiving her. She doesn't deserve it." That was the moment I realized something darker and infidelity was at play. Something twisted. Because if Emily was telling the truth, if she really hadn't cheated, then this wasn't just a mistake. It was sabotage. And the man who had orchestrated it was sitting smugly in his house, probably sipping coffee, knowing he'd just detonated a bomb in the centre of my family. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My vision blurred with rage and confusion. And for the first time in my life, I thought to myself, if this is true, I will destroy him. When things were good between us, I used to brag that Emily's dad and I were on the same team. Justin had been an odd, old-school kind of man, a blunt, opinionated, the type who told you to stand up straight and pull your weight, but he'd also been oddly generous the first few years. He taught me how to change the oil in my truck, kept a stash of tools in his garage that he'd let me borrow, and on holidays he'd shove extra pies into our fridge like some gruff Santa. I remember thinking, more often than not, that his bark came from a place of pride. He loved his daughter fiercely. That was the story I told myself. Our marriage didn't start as some cinematic fairy tale. It was messy, full of late-night arguments and taste-testing microwave dinners while we paid off student loans. But Emily and I built routines and little rituals that felt like anchors. Wednesday tacos, Saturday walks with our daughter, laughing until 2 a.m. over dumb TV shows. Her laugh became my safe place. The world could be collapsing and her hand on my shoulder made it bearable. Justin was always present at the edges of that life, surprise barbecues, the yearly fishing trip, our daughter's first birthday. He called me son with that rough warmth that made me swallow my own insecurities. For a long time I wanted to prove to him that I could carry Emily's world without breaking it. So I worked, fixed, loved, tried to be better. But there were fissures I ignored. Small, almost invisible at the time. He'd make those jokes, "Were you making her happy?" If that landed like a test instead of a conversation. At family dinners, his comments were skewed toward control. "You sure you're supporting her the way I would?" He'd make a show of inspecting the new paint job I did on the porch, then say in that patronising tone, "Good, but next time don't be lazy." 100 little slights like dust motes you don't notice until sunlight hits them. Emily shrugged them off. "That's weird," she'd say. "But he means well." I wanted to believe that forgiveness was strength. I wanted to believe in the narrative of a protective father who only wanted the best for his child. So I rationalised. I told myself I was being paranoid when his texts became more frequent, when he started showing up coincidentally at our house on weekends we hadn't planned anything. I told myself a man his age needed company. Secondary characters made the web thicker. There was Amy, Emily's childhood friend, who was practically family and who'd once cornered me at a barbecue to whisper, "Your girl is the most loyal person I know." There was Mark, my best friend, who'd always been suspicious of Justin's temperament. He'd once warned me, half joking, "Dude, he's got tyrant's eye, don't sleep on it." I laughed it off then. Men like Mark love drama. He's the sort who finds scandal in an empty chair. The bigger red flags came in the form of Patton. Emily began to retreat after certain visits with Justin, quieter at dinner, distracted. She'd make a joke about Acer and talk and then change the subject. Once, after a long visit, she cried in the shower and told me he made me feel small. I held her, she apologised for the tears, and told me not to make a big deal of it. That was the first time I suspected there were things I hadn't seen, but I swallowed the suspicion because it was easier to accept silence than comfort. The building tension turned into a pressure cooker when I started receiving odd calls. Anonymous numbers hung up the moment I picked up. Once, a package arrived at our doorstep with nothing inside but a note, "Think carefully." I mentioned it to Emily and she laughed it off as a prank. But we both felt that undercurrent of watchfulness, like someone tracing the outline of our life with a finger. At family gatherings, the smile on Justin's face became sharper, like a knife that had been polished. He'd praise me publicly and then undermine me privately. He began to ask pointed questions about our finances, our plans, the people I'd been texting. I'd catch him scanning my face, measuring my reactions, then nod as if satisfied. When Emily defended him, I felt something ignite inside me, a low, combustible anger I kept tamped down because I love both of them. Weeks before the screenshot arrived, there was a night that still burns in my memory. Emily had gone to a work seminar, and Justin invited himself over to help with a leaky sink. He helped her for 4 hours, meticulously rearranging drawers and fixing the cabinet that wasn't broken. He left with a casual wave, saying, "Call me if you need anything." The next morning, a stack of voice messages appeared on my phone from unknown numbers, each one edited and strung together with snippets of conversations I had with Emily. They were stitched awkwardly. There were gaps that sounded like splices. I played them for Emily, and she went pale. She swore she hadn't said what the messages suggested. "He's playing games," she whispered. "But why?" We tried to be logical. We considered hackers, cruel acquaintances, some elaborate prank. I thought for a while that maybe I was the only one seeing the pattern. Maybe I was paranoid and punishing the person I loved the most. I wavered between suspicion and denial until the morning the first explosive message hit my phone with the screenshot Justin sent, the one that made the world evaporate beneath my feet. The discovery didn't feel like revelation, it felt like an execution. All the small things I'd ignored, every joke and ominous visit, snapped into place like a string pulled taut. My hands, which had once fixed our life like small mechanical miracles, were now trembling because I realised the man who has stood in my life as a kind of mentor had been slowly, deliberately bending the truth to break us apart. When I called Justin that morning, rage hot in my throat, he answered like a man who'd been waiting. He said only I did what I had to. And that was the hinge for everything that followed. The day I realised the full scope of Justin's betrayal is burned into my memory like a scar. It wasn't a gradual unveiling, it was an explosion, a brutal shattering of every trust I'd ever placed in him. I had spent the previous week going through every phone log, every email, every little digital breadcrumb that could prove Emily's innocence. I wanted answers. I needed the truth because, after the screenshot, nothing else felt real. The world had turned into a series of shadows and whispers. And the deeper I dug, the uglier it became. What I found first was terrifying in its simplicity. Justin had been sending fake messages from multiple burner accounts, carefully crafted to look like Emily was having an affair. The screenshots, the text, even the subtle timing of the notifications, it was all orchestrated. Each message designed to maximise doubt, to chip away at my confidence in my wife. He'd even manipulated metadata to make it appear as though the messages came from her actual phone number. I remember collapsing onto the living room floor when I realised the extent of it. My hands were shaking, my chest tight, and tears burned my eyes. No, this can't be real," I whispered over and over, staring at the phone in disbelief. Emily rushed in, her face pale and drawn. "I told you," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been telling you." But then it got worse. I traced the pattern. Justin had been systematically sabotaging not just me and Emily, but our friends and family who tried to intervene. Amy, Emily's childhood friend who had always vouched for her loyalty, had received a similar set of manipulative messages, designed to make her question Emily's character. Mark, my best friend, had even received anonymous threats, warnings to stay out of our business or risk losing trust. Every person close to us had been drawn into Justin's web. And then came the voicemail recording I had recovered accidentally, left on our answering machine. It was Justin, whispering in that smug, deliberate tone that had always unsettled me. "They need to break, everything has to fall apart before they see the truth. I'm protecting her from him, from everyone. They'll thank me later." Hearing it made bile rise in my throat. Every dinner, every family gathering, every casual comment now carried the weight of premeditation. He hadn't just planted a seed of doubt, he had poisoned the entire soil. The physical toll was immediate. My hands were permanently trembling for days. My appetite vanished, sleep became a stranger. Every time Emily walked past me, my stomach twisted. My mind raced with flashes of the past, the night she cried after his visits, the mornings I'd found strange messages on my phone, and the knowledge that it had all been carefully engineered by the man I'd once respected as a father figure. Then came the calls from others who had started piecing things together. Emily's co-workers had noticed the sudden coldness between us, the nervous tension in meetings. They had started reaching out, cautiously, trying to offer support. Friends texted in confusion. "Why is Justin acting so controlling? Did he say something to you?" Each message was a reminder that the betrayal wasn't isolated, it had radiated outward, touching everyone connected to us. The plot twist that crushed me most came from the most unexpected place, Emily herself. After the initial discovery, she confessed she had confronted Justin about the messages weeks ago. He had smirked and told her, "You'll see, he needs a lesson. He doesn't deserve you yet." She had been forced to stay silent, terrified of the psychological games he could unleash next. Every tear she'd hidden, every whispered plea for patience, was evidence of the cruelty she'd endure. And the realization hit me like a freight train. Justin didn't just want me to doubt her, he wanted to dominate our lives, to manipulate the people we love most, and to break the trust we'd built over years. When I pieced together the timeline, the sheer scope of it was almost unthinkable. Weeks of planning, cross-referencing contacts, manipulating conversations, and sending false evidence. He had become the puppeteer of our misery, and for a moment I felt utterly powerless. The psychological weight was suffocating. Every laugh we shared now carried the echo of his lies, every conversation felt like a trap. I could feel my body reacting, tension knots in my shoulders, headaches that lasted for days, a tremor in my hands that refused to leave. It was as if Justin had reached inside my chest and wrapped his fingers around my heart. And yet, buried in the devastation, a spark of clarity emerged. I understood, in that raw, terrible moment, that this betrayal could not be ignored. It was no longer just about our marriage. It was about taking back control of our lives, exposing the man who had poisoned everything, and making him face the consequences of his deliberate, heartless destruction. That's when I knew I couldn't just confront him yet. I had to prepare. And what I prepared for would be more than anyone could expect. I didn't sleep that night. I paced the house, Emily's hand gripping mine every few minutes to pull me back from the edge of panic. By morning, I had a plan, and not a rational one, but a deliberate, burning strategy to make Justin understand that his games had a cost. This wasn't just about anger anymore. This was about justice, about unmasking a man who had systematically destroyed the people I love most. I drove to his house without a word to anyone, my hands clenched around the steering wheel until my knuckles cracked. The air in the car felt heavy, thick with the anticipation of confrontation. When I pulled up to the familiar white porch, I realized something horrifying. I had no idea what I was about to do would actually stop him. But I knew I had to try. Justin answered the door himself. He looked exactly the same, smug, composed, confident, as if he hadn't just spent weeks orchestrating the psychological torture of his own daughter and son-in-law. "Morning," he said, that irritatingly calm tone. "I was expecting you." I didn't waste words. "You've ruined everything," I said, voice slow, trembling with rage. "I know about the messages, the fake texts, the voicemails, every single thing you've done to turn me against Emily and destroy our lives. You've been poisoning everyone around us. Why?" He shrugged, as if my anger was a petty inconvenience. "I did what needed to be done. You weren't protecting her the way I would have." "Not protecting her." I spat. "You've been destroying her life. You've been destroying mine. This isn't protection, Justin, it's..." He smiled, chillingly calm. "Son, this is strategy. You wouldn't understand. She needed guidance. And you," his gaze narrowed. "You were weak, too weak to see the truth." I lunged forward, anger threatening to drown reason. "Weak? You manipulated my wife, you made her doubt herself. Doubt me, you've poisoned everyone around us for your own sick satisfaction." At that moment, the door behind him creaked open, and Emily stepped out, her eyes blazing. "Enough," she screamed. "He's not your puppet, Dad. He's not mine. You've gone too far this time." Justin's composure faltered for a fraction of a second. Then he laughed to a cold, derisive sound. "You think you can confront me with just words? You have no idea how deep this goes." I had prepared for that. I pulled out the stack of printed evidence, screenshots, timelines, call logs, even the metadata proving his messages were fabricated. Emily held the camera, recording every word, every expression. "I have proof," I said, voice shaking but firm. "Every message, every manipulated call, every threat, it's all here, and you're going to answer for it." His face hardened. "You'd ruin your family for revenge." "No," I said. "You already ruined it. Now we're taking it back." By the end of the confrontation, Justin realized the gravity of what he had done. Emily threatened legal action, and I called the authorities to report fraud and harassment. Neighbours, once oblivious, started whispering as they saw us leave the house with a trail of documentation. Justin's reputation, carefully cultivated for decades, began to crumble in real time. The fallout was immediate. Emily refused to speak to him for weeks. Our friends and family, once torn between loyalty and doubt, rallied around us once they saw the evidence. Even distant relatives reached out, shocked at the depth of his manipulations. Financial consequences followed. Justin's credibility with his investments and small business associates took a hit as word of his malicious action spread. Some of the people he had tried to manipulate cut ties entirely, unwilling to trust someone capable of such deliberate cruelty. The emotional damage, however, was the most brutal. Emily had nightmares for weeks, waking in a sweat, convinced that every message on her phone could be another trap. I wrestled with waves of rage and paranoia, terrified that his influence could somehow extend further. Therapy became our lifeline, a place to unpack the betrayal, the fear, the anger, and the disbelief. Justin's true nature had been laid bare for everyone to see. The man who had once been a mentor, a father figure, and a respected elder was exposed as someone capable of methodical, calculated destruction. Every layer of his carefully constructed persona peeled away, revealing the cold, manipulative predator underneath. By the time the authorities finished interviewing him and we secured protective measures against further harassment, we were drained but resolute. The confrontation didn't erase the trauma, it amplified it. But it also gave us clarity. The man who had tried to destroy our family had finally been forced to face the consequences of his actions, legal scrutiny, social isolation, and the undeniable collapse of the image he'd cultivated for decades. And for the first time in months, Emily and I felt a flicker of control, a tentative sense that we could begin rebuilding what Justin had tried so savagely to dismantle. The days after the confrontation felt unreal, like walking through fog. Justin's threats had ceased, but the emotional wounds he inflicted were deep, raw, and persistent. Emily and I spent hours on the living room floor, holding each other in silence, trying to ground ourselves. Our daughter, blissfully unaware of the storm, brought small bursts of joy that felt both miraculous and painful, a reminder of what had almost been shattered. Therapy became our anchor. At first, it was excruciating. We had to relive the betrayal in painstaking detail, the screenshots, the manipulated messages, the voicemails, the psychological warfare Justin had waged. Each recounting felt like ripping open a wound that refused to close. But slowly, the sessions started to work. We learned to identify the triggers: sudden mistrust, panic for notification, anxiety when someone came too close to our personal space. We developed coping strategies, grounding exercises, and verbal affirmations to combat the intrusive debts Justin had implanted. Emily found a voice she hadn't realized she'd lost. The woman who had once cried silently in the shower after her father's visits began to speak up firmly, without hesitation, when she sensed manipulation, not just from Justin, but in everyday interactions. Her resilience became infectious, and I leaned on her strength even as I rebuilt my own. I discovered that my anger, once a burning and controllable wave, could be channeled into clear action, setting boundaries, documenting interactions, and asserting our autonomy. Support came from unexpected places. Friends who had once been on the fence rallied fully once the evidence was presented. Emmy flew in from across the state to sit with Emily, offering companionship and unwavering belief. Mark helped we sift through legal documentation and even testified about Justin's prior patterns of control and intimidation. These allies became lifelines, reminding us we weren't alone and that the web Justin had tried to weave could be unraveled with community and truth. We faced setbacks. Some family members refused to believe the full extent of Justin's manipulation, clinging to the comforting illusion of the perfect patriarch. Arguments flared, relationships strained, and we had to accept that some connections could never be salvaged. But those losses, while painful, clarified who truly supported us. We began to rebuild our inner circle carefully, valuing authenticity over proximity, loyalty over convenience. The legal processes dragged at a frustrating pace. Justin fought back, attempting to downplay his actions, claiming misinterpretations and exaggeration. But the evidence was undeniable. The burner accounts, the manipulated messages, the timelines, everything pointed directly to him. The police investigations, coupled with family and friends' testimonies, eventually secured a formal restraining order. His social reputation crumbled as community members learned of his manipulations. The man who had once seemed untouchable was now isolated, facing tangible consequences for his calculated cruelty. Emotionally, I still had scars. Some mornings I woke in a sweat, heart hammering at the memory of that first screenshot. I had to retrain myself to trust, to allow myself to accept that Emily's loyalty was unwavering. Meditation, journaling, and candid conversations with Emily became daily rituals, small but essential acts of healing. Slowly, I began to reclaim joy, rediscovering laughter without guilt, intimacy without suspicion. We also made deliberate changes to protect our family. Phones, emails, and social media accounts were secured, privacy reinforced. Conversations with our daughter about boundaries and trust, in age-appropriate ways, began early, teaching resilience and the importance of critical thinking. We turned our trauma into lessons, ensuring the cycle of manipulation would not extend to the next generation. Now, looking back, I see how far we've come. Emily and I have rebuilt a marriage stronger than before, not naive, not untested, but tested in fire and tempered in truth. The pain of Justin's betrayal will always linger, like a scar reminding us of what we survived. But in surviving, we discovered our capacity for trust, resilience, and fierce protection of our family. I no longer fear sudden messages or secret whispers. I recognize red flags before they metastasize. I've learned that love is not blind, it is vigilant. And Emily? She is unbreakable. Together, we've transformed a story of devastation into a testament of survival. We are still healing, still growing, but the darkness Justin tried to impose has been pushed back, replaced by a hard-won sense of agency and empowerment. Today, when I look at my daughter playing in the yard, I feel a fierce gratitude, and not for the betrayal itself, but for the clarity it forced upon us. Life is fragile, people can be cruel, and yet, when you survive the worst, the light you find afterward is brighter than anything you could have imagined. We are no longer victims. We are survivors.